everyone. Today we are going to compare fractions. So you need your workbook page 253 and you need that and a pencil. So if you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that. Go get your workbook page and come back. All right, so what we learned already is that whenever we divide things, they need to be divided evenly. As you can see over here on the right, these parts are divided evenly. Well, as evenly as I could draw them. Okay. And we also learned how to write a fraction. So let's practice that. Let's take a look at this fraction right here on the right. Right here. Okay. How would we write the fraction for the colored piece? Well, let's do something before you even guess. Let's label these. How many pieces are there total in this square? If you said 4, you are correct. So I'm going to label each one 1/4. And if you remember how we read that, we say 1/4 because that stands for 1 piece out of 4. So each piece is 1/4 of that square. All right, I'm going to go ahead and label the other square just so that it's done for that. Okay, now we're going to label the fraction for the colored part. Now remember, this is just a review, nothing new. You did this last time. So how much of that square is colored? If you said 1/4, you are correct. Let's take a look at this second square right here. How much of that square is colored? How many pieces are there that are colored? If you said 2, that is correct. Out of 4 total pieces available, right? So it's 2/4. Or you could count it like this: 1/4, 2/4. All right. Now, sometimes, you have different cuts in the same shape. So what I mean by that is, let me draw 2 squares. Okay, so I drew the 4 squares, and you notice that they're divided into different pieces. Okay, the first square is divided into fourths, so it's divided into 4 pieces. The second square is divided into eighths because it's divided into 8 equal pieces. Now the square is the same size, but the pieces are different sizes because of how many there are. And what do you notice about that? If there are more pieces cut into the whole, what happens to the pieces? If you said they get smaller, you are correct. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to color in 1/4 of the first square, and I'm going to color in 1 piece of the second square. Okay, this one is 1/4. The second square has 1/8. What do you notice about the piece? If you notice that the piece on the 8th is smaller than the piece that's the 4th of the other square, you are correct. That's right. So the more you divide something, the smaller the pieces get. All right, so now that we know that, let's compare. Which piece is bigger? What do you think? If this was brownies, a pan of brownies, would you want the 4th size piece or would you want the 8th size piece? I guess it depends on how hungry you are, but the 4th size piece is bigger. So 1/4 would be greater than 1/8. Okay, so basically what have we learned? We have learned that the more cuts or divisions, so the more cuts, the more smaller the pieces get. Okay. So let's take a look over here. Numbers 1 through 6. Get your paper ready and your pencil because we're going to do this together. Okay. We are going to circle the fraction that is greater. All right, so the first square for number 1, we're looking at the colored part. Okay, for all of these, just the colored part of each square. So this first square shows 1/4. See how that piece size is? Now compare it to 4/4. Which fraction is greater? If you said 4/4, you are correct. Let's circle that. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2, we have 2 flowers. The first flower has 4 petals colored in, which makes it 4/6. The next flower has 2 petals colored in, which makes it 2/6. Which fraction is greater? Go ahead and circle it. Did you circle 4/6? That is greater. All right, you pause the video, do 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then unpause and find out what the answers are. All right, number 3, 6/8 is greater. Number 4, 1/3 is greater. 5, 1/2 is greater. And number 6, 1/4 is greater. All right. So now we're going to move to the next part. That's just this middle part right here. We're going to circle the fraction that is smaller. We circled the greater fraction above, but now we're going to look at the smaller fraction and circle that. All right, so I'll do the first one with you. Let's compare. We have 1/4. Remember, the more cuts that are made into something, the smaller the pieces. This has 2 cuts in it over here. All right, so which fraction is smaller? You can also look at the colored portion and see there's more here in 1/2 than there is in 1/4. So let's circle 1/4 because 1/4 is less than 1/2. All right, you do numbers 8 and 9. Pause the video and then unpause when you're done. Okay, the answer to number 8 is 1/6. Number 9, the answer is 1/8. All right, very, very good. Now we can do the bottom. Okay, so do you remember whenever I drew the picture of the box over here and I showed you how the more cuts there are, the smaller the pieces? Okay. Because let me show you something here in green. I'm going to show you in green. If I can get this thing to work. Okay. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. See how much is taken? It's pretty much the whole. Now I'm going to color in 4 pieces over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, 4 pieces only takes half of the square. So the more cuts, the more divisions you make, or partitions, remember that word? The smaller the pieces. So let's go back to here. Okay, and then you can see how they took a circle, they divided it into two pieces. You have half on this side, half on this side. Then they took that same circle and they cut it into 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So therefore, 1/2 of the circle is greater than 1/4 of the circle that's cut into fourths. All right. So let's answer the statements. Number 10. When halves are partitioned, that's divided, the parts become smaller or larger. So what they're asking is, whenever they cut these halves, again, what's going to happen to the pieces? Will they become smaller or larger? You're right, smaller. Let's do 11. It takes fewer or more smaller parts to make a whole. Well, let's go back over here and look at something. How many parts does it take to make a whole for this circle? It takes 2, right? 2 parts to make a whole. How many parts does it take to make a whole in this circle? 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes 4 parts to make a whole. The more cuts there are. Well, with this one. So let's look at 11. 11 says it takes fewer or more smaller parts to make a whole when you partition it again and again. If you said more, you are correct. All right, so that's the big lesson today, you guys. Is the more cuts there are, the smaller the pieces. Look again right here. Look at number 6. Look at 1/4. That circle is cut into 4 pieces versus 8 pieces. Okay, on the other circle beside it, you can see that the pieces get smaller. You can also look, number 3 is a really good example. It might be a little bit harder to see though. Let's look at number 4 real quick. Okay, so again, this one is only cut into 3 pieces. This one is cut into 6 pieces. The more pieces it's cut into, the smaller the pieces. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to do the back of this page, page 254, turn it over. I'm going to go over the directions. Okay. For 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're going to circle the fraction that is greater. Okay. Then for number 6, you're going to color one part of each shape to make the fraction. Okay, so look at number 6. It says 1/4. So you're going to color one piece out of those 4. Yes, you can use a pencil. You don't have to use color, a crayon. And then you need to do that for 1/8. Color in 1 square. Now you're going to compare which fraction is smaller. Circle that. It's either going to be 1/4 or 1/8. Okay. Then you'll answer number 7. It says, as a shape is partitioned into more equal parts, the parts become what? And that's where you're going to put smaller or bigger. And then you have a little multiplication review at the bottom. All right, so you'll finish the back page of this page, and then you have the first page of your homework reviews, page 249. All right, until next time.